Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has escalated his campaign rhetoric by branding Ukraine a so-called enemy of Hungary, warning voters that closer cooperation with Kyiv risks dragging the country into war. In contrast, the opposition Tisza movement, led by Peter Magyar, has unveiled an election program focused on EU reintegration, energy diversification away from Russia, and repairing relations with Poland. Let's now discuss the latest with our guest, István Szent-Iványi, former Hungarian State Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Good to have you with us here on TVP World.
Good morning.
So the description here, I mean, it's something of a known fact already that Hungary has not necessarily supported Ukraine over these last years, but this kind of language, calling it an enemy of Hungary, why is he doing this now? What's his aim, and how much of an impact will this have?
You know, Ukraine is playing now a central role in his campaign. There is an election campaign, and he needs some enemies. And he put Ukraine the first public enemy in that campaign, and therefore he should escalate the situation, and he should raise the stakes and saying that Ukraine is an enemy, Ukraine is a danger, Ukraine is devastating for Hungary, and we should prevent the Ukrainian EU membership. We should prevent everything and blocking the support for Ukraine and so on. It's a logical consequence of his politics, his policy towards Ukraine in the last few years. It's not new. That's in the last 5 years or four or 5 years, that was very hostile against Ukraine. He heated the public opinion. He thinks that the hate against Ukraine can unite his camp. And unfortunately, he is successful in his camp, not in the whole society, because according to the last polls, 56% of the Hungarians still supports Ukraine membership of the EU and have a much different view and sentiments about Ukraine. But in his camp, it's more than 46%. It's very strongly against that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask about that because, I mean, you said his own camp, that he's very hostile to Ukraine. This is, as you said,
yes,
a logical continuation. But at the same time, how persuasive is this kind of rhetoric when he says it's an enemy, that the Hungarians are facing a choice between peace and being dragged into war? I mean, is that, as you said, his own camp is on his side? Does he need to rattle them more? Is he afraid of another outcome? Why is this going to be as persuasive as he thinks?
Well, he thinks that if there is an atmosphere of the fear and danger, then can mobilize better his camp. His problem now that many who are supporters of the government is not very enthusiastic and fascinated, and sometimes reluctant to go there. He should mobilize everyone who is standing behind him. That's very important for him. And he thinks that if we can expose that it's an imminent danger of Ukraine, and Ukraine can make anything against Hungary, sometimes not himself, but some of the propagandists are saying about that Ukraine can make an assassination in Hungary and terror act or anything else. They would like to incite a hatred. And he supposed that he serves his domestic political purpose. Always, for him, the domestic policy is the most important thing, especially now in the election campaign. And he thinks that in that atmosphere, he has better chance to preserve his position. However, according to all polls, he is lagging behind the leading oppositional candidate, Peter Magyar, and his party. And now he would like to catch up. You know, we have got some experience from the 2022, the last election. In the last election, a few months before the election, the opposition has got a lead. Not so big than today, but still they have 3-4% ahead. And then came the war, and he could instigate this atmosphere that Hungary can be dragged into the war by the opposition, and the opposition would like to send the Hungarians into the front line and so on. And then he could turn around, and at the end he got a big victory, and he could defeat the opposition because he could expose that the opposition is a danger. He would like to go into the war in Ukraine, and that's very dangerous. you should not forget about that he has at disposal a very efficient and very strong propaganda machinery. 480 different platforms are owned by the government or owned by the government close cronies and oligarchs and so on. And of course, everything is with full steam are making this propaganda.
Mm-hmm. We talked about one vision now, Viktor Orbán's vision, a very different one. You already hinted at the opposition Tisza party, as you said, actually now leading at this moment in time, led by Peter Magyar. So a very different type of vision, especially also with energy and recent types of statements as well, looking for energy independence by 2035, doubling renewables by 2040, cutting away from Russian energy. Completely different plan from Orbán. So first of all, how sustainable, how realistic would that kind of plan be if he does win, if Tisza does win? And is this being heard successfully by the electorate in Hungary?
I think it's very realistic. In my view, even earlier we can get rid of the Russian energy resources. Look at Poland at the moment, or the Czech Republic. They completely get rid of that in much shorter period of time. I don't think so that we need so long time. The Tisza is tactical in that sense, because Orbán could persuade the people that we are dependent on the cheap Russian energy, which was a big lie. The Russian energy is not cheap at all. Not cheap at all as far as the price is concerned, and not cheap at all as a dependency concerned, because Hungary is very much dependent. 80%, 90% dependent on the Russian energy resources. Therefore, I think that even earlier we can do that. But they wouldn't like to strongly confront with the public opinion, with the deceived public opinion, which suppose that the Russian gas and Russian oil are cheaper than the others and very difficult to decouple from that and dismantle this relationship. And therefore, they see it's a very gradual and very long process. As you know, the European Union has a clear decision that by the end of 2027, next year, by the end of next year, we should stop the gas from Russia. That's clear. Of course, Orbán sued and Slovakia sued this issue at the European Court, but I'm sure that will happen. And I have got information that the Hungarian energy giant, MOL, is started to look for other resources because they are aware of that it will happen. In 1.5 years, or a bit more than 1.5 years, and that's all right. Mr. Magyar does have a very different vision in many other ways. For instance, concerning Europe, as you know, Mr. Orbán is very hostile and very skeptical about European Union. He's talking about that European Union will collapse very soon, or the days of the European Union are numbered, and so on. And Mr. Magyar said that we are a European country, we should cooperate with European Union, we should restore the relationship, a constructive relationship with European Union. It's a completely different view on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about relationships for a moment as well. I mean, you mentioned the European connection. Let's also talk about the regional connection. This is also something Peter Magyar said, that he'd like to repair relations with Poland, which has been quite on sharp terms recently. So, I mean, how much damage has been done the last few months and years between Budapest and Warsaw, and how fast could this be repaired in your mind?
Unfortunately, much of the damages has been done in the last few years, and Mr. Peter Magyar is prepared to restore very shortly and quickly. That he announced that his first visit as a prime minister will pay to Warsaw, because he is confident that the most important regional relationship between Hungary and Poland, it's a traditional friendship. He would like to restore it. That's we need very much. And then he would like to to restore the Visegrad Four cooperation, in a sense, if we can make it with the Czech and Slovak leadership. That's a big question mark, of course, now. But Mr. Fico's position is shaking. Even now, there are a strong strain on him. Maybe he will have a pre-election in Slovakia. And Poland is playing an important role. He clearly said that Poland is the most important partner in the region, and Mr. Orbán damaged and devastated this relationship very much. Not only because of his close Russian relationship, but also to provide asylum for two Polish suspects, the former justice minister and his deputy in Hungary. And that's, of course, these are the steps which can be very devastating in the bilateral relationship.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just really briefly, just towards the end, I want to ask also your opinion of the recent endorsement by U.S. President Donald Trump of Viktor Orbán. Is this going to, how is that going to impact his campaign? Is this a blessing, a curse? How do you see it?
That's a very good question. Both, I would say, because blessing in a sense that in the camp of Mr. Orbán, of course, Mr. Trump, the President Trump, is very popular. But only in his camp. And generally, in the Hungarian public opinion, he is not popular at all. And especially after the leak of the publication of the last Epstein files and so on, there are many things because Mr. Trump is not popular at all. Of course, Mr. Orbán would like to expose this connection that it is very good for Hungary, that the most powerful country of the world is a good friend of him. But this friendship did not bring so much. That Mr. Orbán promised that in a half year after the inauguration of President Trump, we will have an excellent economic and financial and other relationship with the United States. Now we are after 1 year, more than 1 year, his inauguration, and nothing has happened. Nothing boosted his economic ties. Only even the opposite. That we have got serious problem because of the tariffs. The United States tariffs. Hungary is the fourth damaged country or affected country in Europe by that tariffs, and therefore that's his popularity is not so big, and I wouldn't say that it can bring so much advantage for Orbán, but he is hopeful. He thinks that he is very good because he can play the role that he is playing in the league of the big boys, and he has a very big, very strong friendship with the most powerful people of the world. He is very proud of that Mr. Trump, Mr. Putin, Mr. Xi Jinping, he is a good friend of him. However, I don't think so that any of them is a real friend. They can use him because he can be a so-called useful idiot in the European Union, NATO, and Mr. Orbán playing that role, but doesn't bring any benefit for Hungary.
All right, so giving us the latest there of a very intense election campaign. Thank you so much there from Hungary, Mr. István Szent-Iványi. Much appreciated. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.